My widow should die on my funeral pyre. That's my wife's honor. That's my conviction. My society believes in it. Who are these sacrilegious fellows trying to prevent holy sati? You devils, you cannot stop a woman's rightful path to heaven.
Sir, recently I listened to a man called Ram Mohan Roy. He said, and I agree, we can show your wife a better path to heaven than through sati.
Rascal, you are questioning my dharma, my scripture.
Sir, please show the authority for this cruelty in your scripture. I have searched, and I do not find any.
Blasphemous. You are gathering an unruly mob around you. I am the priest, and I alone can read the scriptures.
But Keshav Chandra Sen has told us that we can all read the scriptures. We do not believe in priests. We believe in God. I don't want a guru. My conscience is my guide.
You fellows, we will throw you away as outcasts, mind you.
I find no caste mentioned in our scriptures. Castes are just professional guilds. There is no reason for anyone to feel superior.
You vagabonds, don't come near me, you untouchables.
Ah well, I am an Erava. Our great saint Narayana Guru tells me we are not untouchables. We are all children of God.
Indeed, in these modern days of the 19th century, Kali Yuga has almost dawned. Oh my God, my dharma is getting corrupt. Save my society, save my religion. Look at this atrocity. My sister is a widow. If my grandfather was alive, she would have been righteously cremated with her husband's body. A death of such glory and dignity. But now, she has run away somewhere.
Sir, Professor Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar has propagated the idea of a remarriage. You know, Veerasalingam has started a home for child widows. I found your sister there.
Oh Shiva, Shiva, what a dirty idea. Remarriage for a widow? What an unholy idea to have all widows in one place.
These Hindus are losing their religion, getting corrupted by an alien English education. Hence, my Muslim brothers, let us not send our children to modern schools.
Sir, my son is a student of the Aligarh College, recently started by our Syed Ahmad Khan. I think all of us should give a better modern education to our children. Let us not get left behind.
That is all right. Let people of other religions do what they like. But my son, you cannot change.
But Father, our Saint Ramalinga Adigal believes in the universal brotherhood beyond all castes, creed, race, religion and nationality. He feels all men are children of God, whether Hindu, Muslim or Christian.
Unlike the Upanishads, several of which are in the form of a dialogue between student and teacher, reflecting a spirit of academic freedom. Unlike the tradition of the ancient rishis, in which open-minded inquiry and interrogation was part of spiritual sadhana. The early 19th century in India was dominated by superstition, when custom overruled curiosity.
And then a period of great renaissance started in the mid-19th century, a period which perhaps has yet to reach its zenith. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, born in Radhanagar, Bengal in 1772, is often referred to as the father of Indian Renaissance. From this palatial house in Calcutta where he lived, he radiated a reform movement which swept the country far and wide, leaving a lasting impact. His zest gave the death knell to the barbarous practice of burning the widows alive. Roy declared that his efforts were aimed simply at purifying and not overthrowing the Indian tradition he had inherited, and at the same time taking stock of and absorbing the best in those influences from elsewhere to which India was then exposed. With the hope of purging Hinduism of its superstitions, he promoted the Brahma Samaj. Roy's contribution to the Renaissance rests, firstly, in his refusal to accept tradition for its own sake, and his willingness to give it up when he deemed it desirable, and secondly, in his inducing Indians to be forward-thinking in terms of similarities and the common basis of things. He led them in the direction of unity and synthesis, an end which could be achieved only through a willingness to admit, evaluate, and accept the best in that which was different. He did this, of course, in large part because of his own personal qualities of magnanimity of mind, depth of compassion, uncompromising integrity, and complete fearlessness. Roy thought far ahead of his times. His vision of a League of Nations was not realized until another century, a vindication of his breadth of outlook and universalism. Roy passed away during his visit to Britain, and his admirers built a samadhi where he was cremated in Bristol, England.
Henry Louis Vivian de Rosio was an extraordinary poet, reformer, and intellectual prodigy who created a stir in Bengal before he died at the age of 22 in 1831. During his short tenure, teaching at the new Hindu college, and through his writings, he propagated the equality of women and worked to promote women's education. He left behind him a band of youthful disciples.
Keshav Chandra Sen was an early product of the Renaissance, to which he contributed in substantial measure. He hoped to see the brotherhood of man under the fatherhood of God realized in the social, religious, and international areas. He argued against caste on several grounds. Caste was originally meant to be a system of social distinction, a division of society into trades and professions. Later, this system had been strengthened and fortified by religious sanctions. Polytheism and caste swept away the purer Hinduism which had existed before. He considered education to be the main tool of reformation for the Indian masses. He started the first Indian school for girls in 1871, called the Native Ladies Normal School. The Brahma Samaj established a large number of girls' schools. In this prayer hall, Keshav Chandra was often visited by his saintly companion, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and the two meditated and gave discourses from here. The Brahma Samajists adopted a Christian-like model for a basically Hindu reformist movement. Another major movement that changed the character of the Indian was the Arya Samaj, founded by Dayananda Saraswati in 1874. In the 50 years of his life till then, he had gone through a wide variety of religious experience and precept. He rejected the pilgrimage-oriented mundane devotionalism and wanted the Hindus to return to the religion of the Vedas. He strongly believed in man's elevation through morality, physical, mental and spiritual hygiene. He opposed caste and worked hard to elevate the untouchables, declaring that the Vedic traditions were open to all. He wanted Sanskrit and English to be given equal importance, as also the Vedas and modern science. Yet another son of Bengal, credited in a large measure for the Indian Renaissance, was Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Although he had several achievements to his credit, he himself considered his contribution to the passing of the Widow Remarriage Act of 1856 to be his most important contribution to society. Vidyasagar also differed from most other leaders of the Renaissance movement in the sense that he remained a religious neutral. He was so totally concerned with social reformation and education that he hardly had any inclination for what is generally described as religious sentiment. He remained a humanist every inch, without ever getting into the discussion of metaphysics or the relevance of scriptures. Even as the assimilation of Western thought and the awakening of an English consciousness was in progress, every Westerner was attracted to the mystique of India. Among them were Madame Blavatsky of Russia and Colonel Henry Olcott from America, a friend and associate of Abraham Lincoln. The two together had founded the Theosophical Society at a meeting in New York in 1875. They soon decided to shift the headquarters to India, to the present location on the banks of the Adayar River in Madras. The society began to strive to establish a universal brotherhood of man, transcending the limitations of caste, creed, race, sex, and religious differences. Even as the centenary of the society was celebrated with participants from around the world, nostalgic thoughts went back to the many intellectual and spiritual leaders of India who were attracted to this movement in its early years. A remarkable person to emerge on the Indian political scene through this movement was the Irish-born Annie Besant, who later had the unique honor of becoming the President of the Indian National Congress at the height of the Indian freedom struggle. One of Mrs. Besant's many achievements in India was the establishment of the Central Hindu School at Varanasi, which was later developed by Madan Mohan Malaviya into the Benares Hindu University. Annie Besant believed that we all shared a common life. Anything that injures another cannot be permanently good for any one of us. The group-oriented model of society, as per the ancient Indian custom, appealed to Annie Besant more than the individualistic, laissez-faire philosophy of the West. She believed in the dharma-bound system of Indian social order more than the rights-oriented, survival of the fittest Western model. Although this was a period when India was intellectually importing such a model, Annie Besant felt that there was too much in the West of what she called the rampant individualism resulting in the brutalization of life, which is the outgrowth of selfishness, treating man as machinery. In a way, the Theosophists were on the same wavelength as the spiritual philosophy of the 19th century Tamil saint Ramalinga Adigal, who was a liberated soul, preaching universal brotherhood of all mankind. Movements for religious reform were late in emerging among the Muslims. The Muslim upper classes had tended to avoid contact with Western education and culture, and it was mainly after the revolt of 1857 that modern ideas of religious reform began to appear. The most important reformer among the Muslims was Syed Ahmad Khan. He was tremendously impressed by modern scientific thought and worked all his life to reconcile it with Islam. In 1875, he founded at Aligarh the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College as a center for spreading Western sciences and culture. Later, this college grew into the Aligarh Muslim University. He declared that the Quran alone was the authoritative work for Islam, and all other Islamic writings were secondary. Even the Quran he interpreted in the light of contemporary rationalism and science. In his view, any interpretation of the Quran that conflicted with human reason, science, or nature was in reality a misinterpretation. All his life, he struggled against blind obedience to tradition, dependence on custom, ignorance, and irrationalism. He also warned against fanaticism, narrow-mindedness, and exclusiveness, and urged students and others to be broad-minded and tolerant. A closed mind, he said, was the hallmark of social and intellectual backwardness. Believing that a person's religion was his or her private affair, he roundly condemned any sign of religious bigotry in personal relations. Hindus, Parsis, and Christians had freely contributed to the funds of his college, whose doors were also open to all Indians.
Kandukuri Veerashalingam in Andhra, Mahatma Hansraj and Swami Ramtirth in Punjab, Narayana Guru in Kerela, Thakkar Bapa in Gujarat, Mahatma Phule and Pandita Ramabai in Maharashtra began to work for the removal of untouchability as well as rehabilitation and remarriage of widows.
The spirit of resurgent India had taken roots in different parts of the country.